Hi, everyone. It's Sarah, No Support Workers podcast. Today, I've got you, Michelle, from Arise, and I am so keen to talk about your background and things that you're doing in this sector because you're doing some really cool things.
Hi, it's lovely to meet you, Sarah, and it's lovely to meet all of your podcasters. So, a little bit about me is I've been in the sector for nearly 10 and a half years. Came into the sector following through a education career, actually. So, I started in journalism, in radio journalism, and then actually ended up in TAFE teaching radio journalism, and then ended up doing marketing, promotions, and anything in the media related industry. So yeah, it was a bit of a transition from TAFE into a new career, which was in the marketing field. And it was more of a calling for me because my cousin worked as a supported employee for a Ford in the factory, and he was always hassling me. We'd grown up together. He had an intellectual disability, and he'd always pester me and say, "Come with me, come and work with me." And just by chance, it was 2 months after I'd finished up at TAFE, the position at a Ford came up, and it was known as the Australian Foundation for Disability at the time. Very small, local Penrith community-based service provider, and we didn't have the NDIS then. It was all the old model block funding, and I went in and it just captured my heart. It was like I felt right at home. I never thought I'd be able to replace that feeling of being a teacher and in a classroom. But as soon as I started, I felt, yeah, this is something that I really love.
Feel like your experience of being a teacher and in a classroom helped you get to where you are today because it's breaking down an activity. Teachers, that's what they do. They break it down to make it really easy for everybody in the class to understand. So when did you realize that marketing was what you wanted to do long term?
I think I could see when I started at a Ford how powerful marketing could actually be, and what it could do, and how you could send out. I'm very creative. I love creativity. I love imagery. I love that creative spark, and it lent into that creative aspect. And because I was a one-man band for a long time at a Ford, which, funnily enough, when you look at how large it is now, having one person doing all the marketing back then was quite a feat. I got to do all aspects of the role. So I wasn't leading anyone at the time. It was just me as the marketing manager, and I actually got to do a little bit of everything and really grow those skills that I'd been teaching and put them into practice. So I think that was the moment in that position where I realized this was what I want to do. And, as you're growing up, I was young still. As you're growing up, you've got all of these hopes and dreams. And I don't think I ever thought of marketing as an option until I actually started teaching. And then it just lent into the job at a Ford.
Marketing's fun, to be honest
It
with
is,
you.
it is fun.
It
It
is.
is fun.
I do have a disability background as well, like yourself, but there is a thrill, and I think maybe this might be a teaching thing that we might have that's in common, is that there's a thrill with marketing that you're able to nurture and teach the audience and the people that are watching, about your service and what you do and why you do it. Do you feel that you learned that from being a TAFE teacher or from your time in corporate?
I think it's a bit of both. Obviously, you're teaching the fundamentals and you're teaching the theory behind what you've learned in a classroom setting, and you're helping other people put that theory into practice. You're actually not doing it yourself in the real world. Although I did set up the course to be more like a real world opportunity. We actually used to hold open days for the Blacktown TAFE. We were one of the only TAFEs that had organised that. So we used to hold open days and make for those open days, we would launch movies and we would launch marketing campaigns. So I tried to make it as real world as possible, but I think it's a bit of both. When I went into the sector, that then solidifies all the theory and you put it into practice.
What was it like building and leading marketing at that organization? Because it seems like such a big step, and especially now when you get to look back at it and see how it's grown and developed itself.
Yeah, it was. I wouldn't say as big a step as if I had have stepped into a Ford in today's, the size and what it is today. But when I stepped into a Ford, I did a whole new brand. So I created their branding. So I got to actually, I think along the way, I got to experiment and learn, and we all make mistakes at the beginning. But I think it wasn't such a huge transition because it wasn't as big as it is today. So it was very localized, very small budget to start with. It wasn't until 2 years later when they'd rolled out the NDIS that it just went, national, went very large, and then we were looking at huge budgets.
So, from that period of time, what leadership qualities did you learn from them that you bring into today?
What I really think that in terms of leadership, so once we started to grow the team, so once it all of a sudden became about not me doing everything, I think the hardest part for somebody when you're doing everything yourself and then you grow a team and you have people reporting to you is learning how to delegate, learning how to actually let go of the reins and empower somebody else to do what you were doing before, and then to also support them to grow and do it in a way that, you've mapped out in your mind. So it's handing over the trust, it's handing over the reins, it's letting go. And for me, I'm a perfectionist and I love to be hands-on. So in every leadership role that I've had, I always have to be a part of doing. I can't just delegate everything. I really like to be part of creating in that creative process. So I've always kept my hands on. So I'd always delegate myself an aspect of the marketing to do. And then you then find the strengths in your team and you then delegate the tasks that suit those strengths. If you try to, I think as a leader, one of the biggest mistakes is to try and then give people tasks that really don't suit their skill set. And as a leader, I think that's your job, is to find out what skill sets people have, what they love doing, what empowers them, what brings out the best in them. And then between your team, delegate the roles and tasks that really suit that skill set. So I think it was a little bit of learning to identify people's skill sets, and letting go was the biggest thing for me.
We never had a marketing budget. Your budget, you pretty much somebody would put something on Facebook and that be it, or you might end up in the newspaper and stuff like that. How have you been able to grow and develop your skills? Because it had changed, like social media has changed so rapidly in the last 10 years that it's really hard to keep up.
It is really hard to keep up. And I think the biggest thing with budgets, when I first started at Afford, we had a really small budget and then it blew up to, we had $1 million budgets there. So I think when you've got an unlimited budget, it's actually a lot easier because my mind is so creative and I think so much out of the box that you can afford to do things when you've got a bigger budget that are in your mind and that are out of the box, like having a mermaid swimming in a tank at one of our gala balls. Like that's huge, and you have the budget to do that. I think it's a lot more difficult when you're dealing with smaller budgets. That's when you have to be a little bit more creative in terms of how can I get something as grand or as spectacular as I do when I've got a larger budget with this smaller budget. So that really tests you. And I've found ways to overcome that. Is it ever going to look as great or grand? Am I going to be able to afford to have a mermaid swimming in a tank with a smaller budget? Probably not. But what can I do to get that same sort of impact? So I think when you're working with smaller budgets, it's more difficult.
I've always had a smaller budget. So for me, going from a really small, tight budget to a big budget, I found really quite overwhelming because I was always used to shoestrapping it, finding
Yeah.
ways to get people's attention to draw people into service. So
Yeah.
is there any campaigns that you've had, like you've talked about the mermaid, that you're really proud of?
Yeah, definitely the campaign that we ran when we actually moved into the Melbourne market, that space was really difficult. And we're talking about not long after the NDIS rolled out. So probably, your 2018 period. And we were finding it was very clicky, very hard to break through in that market. And because we were a centralized team based in Sydney for our marketing, you really need to, get to know the audience because your audiences in every state are different. So trying to break through to that audience, we had to start thinking, okay, feet on the ground, what can we do? So we had a trip to Melbourne, checked out, what we were working with, had some conversations with people, and I found a grant and it was actually for a train wrap, and it was $1 million tram wrap. And we actually had to submit a video. So we had to put together a video and submit a campaign idea for the tram wrap. And we actually were one of the winners. It was actually went out to a few different community organisations within the Melbourne space, and we were one of them. So we won $1 million tram wrap. And what we were able to do with that is we actually used our participants and we did a photo shoot with them, and they were actually blown up, bigger than life size, on the side of a tram. And we actually then took them down to Melbourne for the unveiling of the tram, and we had a big celebration and a big media open day down there. And it was just heartwarming to see the families and to see the participants, see their faces light up, see them crying. It was like, this is what it's all about for me. And that was probably my favorite campaign. And what we did is we just saturated the market. We had this tram wrap, which was worth $1 million. So we thought at the same time, let's get out and get other methods running at the same time. So we had a huge campaign running together with that tram wrap. So it was a very successful campaign, and it was a very humbling experience.
Was it something that you guys thought of as a team together, or was it like one of those shower ideas, or, the 2 a.m. I woke up in the middle of the night and thought that's not a bad idea? Like, how did you get to this point?
It actually came about because we had somebody who worked on our grants, and she saw this opportunity had come up, and she said to me, "Michelle, would this be something you'd be interested in?" And I said, "Absolutely." So I have to take my hat off to our grants lady at the time, Tony. She came forward with the idea. She actually helped me fill out all the application. And then I just had to go away and put together the video production. And I remember looking at the final video edit, and I was just crying. And I thought, if this does not win, I do not know what will win, because it was just beautiful. And it was all of our participants, and it was showcasing what we did as an organisation. I'm a crier. I always get emotional. Love when a campaign goes off, and I love it. I just, I'm always shedding a tear and going, oh my God, this is amazing. So she came up with the idea actually by just stumbling across it. And then as a team, we just snowballed ideas of how we were going to get this video to stand out and really make an impact. And I said, look, we need to talk in emotion, because this is what we're not selling a product. We need to showcase the emotional side of what we do, and we did that.
There's so much to unpack there. But ready? All right. So I would say that you and I are quite creative by nature, because when you're doing some, like, it is marketing, right? And you've got to create. How
Yes.
do you balance the two? Because sometimes my head will go further than what is actually expected at that period of time. How do you keep it like in and relevant still?
Yeah, well, that's where the strategy comes into play. So you have to have both strategy and creativity working together. You can't have one without the other. It just doesn't work. So your strategy sets your limits. Okay, so it gives you goals, it gives you outcomes, it gives you those limits that you want to set. And then that creativity, you work within those limits. So it's a really big balancing act to have both of those things, but they're both just as important as each other, and you don't want one to be more than the other.
You're not really selling a product, you're selling emotions, you're selling people and what they do.
Yes.
Because it's like, I was talking to somebody the other day that this is a very unsexy topic. To be honest, the NDIS is a really hard sell. So how do
It
you,
is.
in your opinion, with all your experience, how do you get in front of people to sell, not to sell, but to promote what you guys do at Arise?
Yeah, I think you have to lead with emotion and lead with heart. What you're doing is you're trying to, and let's be honest, what we do in the industry, a lot of people are doing very similar things. So how do you then set yourself apart to families who are often struggling emotionally, they're overwhelmed, they're time poor? How do you break through? We're all inundated with messaging. Okay, so we're consuming so many messages all the time. How do you break through? What do you do? How do you set yourself apart? For me, it is being honest, trustworthy, and really building those connections and that trust. And how do you do that? Well, you talk about what you do well. You don't overpromise and underdeliver, and you focus on making your messaging simple. Really, I think when you're talking about people with emotion, when you're talking about emotion, keep it simple. That's really the best way to get your message across, and make sure that you are connecting with people, that don't use terms and terminology that people are not going to resonate with. You want to speak their language and, to them, not at them.
So I think like we're on par here because you can lead a horse to water, you can't make it drink, right? So
No, you
you can
can't.
have all the best marketing strategies possible, but once they come into service and have that conversation, that really needs to be leaped on and made to be like to make sure that the interaction between the two is perfect. How do
Yeah,
you
that's
manage
right.
that? Because you like I said, you could do some really fantastic, beautiful campaigns. How do you take it from the campaign into service to make sure that you're the provider of their choice?
So, I think, like you said, being honest about what you deliver and how you deliver that service, is key, because, as you said, when it gets to the point, if a family are going to come through, say you have a day program, if a family are going to come through your day program and you say, we deliver the best services, we have an amazing day program, um, we have the best sensory room in the state. If families come in and you don't have those things, you've lost their trust straight away. So you really have to promote what you have and be honest about what you have, and do it in a way that people can then come in and see it for themselves. And luckily, thank God, where I work now, we have that. Our day program, if I can get somebody through those doors, day program sells itself, because they walk in and they literally walk through a rainbow tunnel and go, wow, that is the reaction I get every single time. So when I'm out there and I'm selling, and it is selling, you're telling people and you're selling a message about, I have an amazing space, I have an amazing day program. I do. And I actually wouldn't be able to do it without believing in where I work. I have to really believe in what I'm doing and where I'm working and be values aligned. Otherwise, I wouldn't be working there. So, yeah, for me, that's really important, is the honesty and building that trust right from the beginning, and really telling people what you have in an honest way that actually appeals to them and gets them through the door.
And it's not just behind a computer you do, because I'm nosy, right? Like, let's be honest. I
Yeah.
see you out and about and I see you talking and networking and collaborating with people. Is this something that comes easy to you, or is it just something that's secondhand because you've just done it?
I was an only child, and I grew up with aunties and uncles who were in their late teens and early 20s. So growing up in an adult-based environment, I've learned very quickly how to interact and how to engage with people. Still have a very close relationship with my grandmother. I'm very much like her. She was a nurse until she was 76 years old. So she's a carer as well. And she was always able, from the country. So we both, I grew up in the Northern Territory for part of my life. I went to 15 different schools. So I had to learn to adapt. So that's naturally me. My dad was in the Navy, so we traveled around a lot. So you learn very quickly, if you don't have that social skill or social interaction, that, moving around so much, you're not going to build a network of friends very quickly. I think that's innate in me. I love people and I love stories. So that's why I originally started in journalism, because I love hearing people's stories, and I genuinely do. I will sit there and listen to somebody's story and ask so many questions. And I know some people go, oh, wow, you ask a lot of questions. It's because I'm genuinely interested.
I do that too. That's why I have a podcast. I'm just curious. Like, you're like, and how did you get here and what you did watch and your struggles? Tell me.
Yeah.
I'm all ears. I love it. And right. Sorry, you got me at my core.
Mm. Yep. Yeah.
So to get where you've made some boo-boos and errors, and we all have, especially I will be, yep, I'll admit to that. I've made plenty of errors during my
Oh, yeah.
time. So what is one mistake that you have learned early that taught you something really big that you can use for today?
It's actually, when you look back on it, it's funny, but at the time it wasn't funny. So when you're in marketing, you're doing a lot of design, and you're printing up collateral to give away and marketing. And we actually had ordered this big, huge shipment of mousepads. Okay. So I set up the design for the mousepad and sent it through. And somewhere during that communication, there was a bit of a lost in translation moment where they'd actually changed the word afford to afford. So we got over 2,000 mouse pads with afford on there instead of afford. And
Sorry.
that's because I trusted the process of when they sent back when I would send through my original files and say, okay, here's what I want and here's the look and feel, they send back a proof and you have to check the proof. And I'd quickly check the proof and I didn't notice they'd changed it from the O to the A. And I was like, yes, approved. And then, yeah, opening the box was a surprise, I must
Did you
say.
want to die a little?
Thankfully, I died. I completely died. I went, oh my gosh, this is a lot of mouse pads to have the word afford. And so they thankfully recognized that it had been lost in translation on their end, and they actually sent through some correct afford mouse
I
pads.
understand. For like I've been telling people for a period of time, I was sending an email saying regrettably Sarah instead of regards, and I'm just really dyslexic. And I didn't have ChatGPT, so when I hear mistakes like that, it's a part of my heart sinks because I know how it feels and it's really crap.
Bad, but that from then on, I religiously started using, making sure, of course, that you go through and you check other people's work. You can't ever rely on somebody else to get it right at all times, and it's better to have, really good eyes looking over it. So I always do things now where I get others to have a look with their fresh eyes. I have a look and a third party, and I always use Grammarly now. I run everything through Grammarly, and I got my team Grammarly, access to Grammarly, and they all use Grammarly as well. So I think it's putting in strategies. Once it's a learning curve. People make mistakes. We're human, unfortunately. It's then what do you do from that, and how do you learn from that, and what strategies do you put in place to make sure that you reduce the risk of that happening again?
What's your definition of good marketing and how has it changed over time? And I feel like you've kind of nailed that one on the head, but is there any more that you'd like to add
Yes.
in what it's changed?
Yeah, I think for me, I don't like to judge other people's marketing because I think that's a subjective question saying, what do you think is good marketing? What don't you think is good marketing? For me, something may resonate for me and it may not resonate for somebody else. But I think having the fundamentals of understanding and knowing your audience and making sure that you build trust, or in our industry, trust. So know your audience, build trust, and make sure that remember we talked about those strategy and those parameters earlier on, making sure that you have clear strategy, you have clear outcomes and goals and what you're looking to achieve in place. That can set the foundation for a good marketing campaign. Probably one of the best marketing campaigns I've ever seen that still resonates with me to this day is the University of Western Sydney. They did a beautiful campaign about one of their graduates who graduated with a law degree, and it resonated with me because of the emotion behind it. So for me, I like campaigns that have emotion, or I do like campaigns that have a bit of a laugh because I like to laugh. So those are the two marketing styles that I really resonate to personally, watching ads and seeing marketing campaigns. But I think in our industry, emotion is really key to what we use and put out there, and stories that people can relate to, not made up stories, real stories, and making sure that that connects with people.
More humans. And then if I look at it and like if I pull it apart, the more human the story was, the more engagement
Yeah.
that I felt that I got from people because they were intrigued about the story and how we got how we were able to travel train, how we were able to get a job, how I was meant to be independent. These are fantastic stories that I find at times we don't promote enough or we don't talk about enough because we talk if you look at some campaigns that I've seen, it's just it feels like a take and not a give. And I feel like we could
Yes.
give our audience so much more, like of what we do and do it well, do apart from every other provider.
Yeah, and real stories resonate. One of the stories that not stories of one of our participants that we've been able to share his story, and his family have actually done a testimonial, video testimonial for us. That story resonates with me, and everywhere I go, I tell that story. And it's because it has made such a huge impact in not only the participant's life, but the family's life. And that's what we're all about. We're about making an impact and a difference. And so I think those are the things that we need to share more, because there's so much negative in the media now about the NDIS space, and we have so many positive stories that we could be sharing over and over and over again.
Well, you said something that touched a chord with me, because if you can share all the positive stories, because it does happen, there's nothing stopping any other provider doing what you guys are doing, really. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah, that's
And
right.
how do you make sure that you keep in line with being honest and being ethical? Because it can be quite easy for people to step away from that, thinking that a quick sell
Yes.
would be, I can make a carousel and that be it, or I can create a photo shoot and that be it. How do you give it that depth so you've got good ethical marketing?
Well, you need to, so when you're preparing your content, you need to know what the purpose is. So you don't just make content for content's sake. If you're preparing content regularly and saying, okay, I need to do 5 posts a week, and put no thought and no effort into these posts, and there's no substance behind what you're posting, then you're just marketing for marketing's sake. There's no outcome, there's no reason or rhyme. And people pick up on that. People know when you're just doing a post to fill, tick a box or say, yeah, I've done my 5 posts for the week. I remember coming into this space in this particular job. It was really outside of the box for me, because I hadn't done that sort of, I know growth and marketing are very aligned, but I hadn't been the face of an organization. I'd always been in the background. So for me, it was like, well, who do I be? What's my identity? Like, what's my brand? Like everyone kept saying, you need to create your own brand. I kept thinking, well, who am I? And there's some really big profiles in the sector who have built great brands. And I thought, well, I'm not, that person. And who am I? And someone said to me, Michelle, just be yourself. What do you love? And I said, well, for me, kindness is key in everything I do. I lead with kindness. So you'll notice that that's a key theme in my LinkedIn, and that leads with everything I do, even in my marketing. So for me, kindness, purpose, storytelling, these are what lead my marketing strategies, especially in this industry. And that's what's important for me. And so that's what I had to realize is I am who I am. I love a laugh. I love kindness, and I love stories. So put those things together, and that's me, and that's who I am.
So, would you give any advice for any smaller providers wanting to promote their business in the marketing space? Because, like, I know you, but I always say that LinkedIn's free, Facebook's free, Instagram's free, YouTube's free. Could you give any advice for anyone looking into it? Because a few people that I have found and have had conversations with in the past would automatically ship that off to somebody else or a VA to do, when
Yes.
really at times it can lose its voice and its understanding, and people can, the enjoyment's not the same because it's the person that's promoting and posting it doesn't understand the business like you do.
That's right. And so I think for me, the best advice I can give you is try to get your whole team involved, like not just your marketing team. So you'll see in a lot of the way that we market and on our Instagram, we all our staff get involved. Our directors get involved. They have fun. And what you're showcasing in that is who we are, the essence of who we are. So when you're seeing the fun that we're having in our day program or out in the community or our events that we're putting together, and those moments, that reflects who we truly are, and it involves the whole team, not just one person. So that we're showcasing that, Arise isn't Michelle. Arise is a team, and there's a team of people behind Arise, and we all have the same shared values. So I think getting a team involved and making sure it's your team, like, having somebody overseas do that. Like you said, they don't know you or your brand. And it's very, very easy to get your marketing again for marketing's sake. That's what I believe. If you're shipping it off to somebody who's not within your organization, then how can they know? Yes, they can get an understanding of your brand and your brand essence, and you give them all your brand collateral, and yeah, I can understand. And, here's this is how we run our brand and this is how we do it. But are they in there every day? Are they seeing your participants today, for example? Are they seeing where they're cheering while our participants are throwing and playing quotes and they're getting excited? Or when, one of our participants comes into my office every day, opens the door and says, I see you, and, interest. No, they're not seeing these. And these are moments that really shape who you are and what your brand is about, because this is what you do every day. So I think having people who really work within your brand, know your brand, your whole team, your team is your brand. They represent you every day when they're out and about. So
Yeah.
you need to make sure that when I talk to our team, or when our directors talk to our team, they make sure they're like, you represent our brand every day. How you interact with our participants when you're out and about, or even when nobody's watching, that makes a difference, because that's what's important and that's what people will see. And it doesn't matter how much marketing you put out there. If you're consistently seeing people out in the public with your branding, wearing your branding, doing the wrong thing,
Yeah.
that's never, ever going to work.
You've said two things that touch my heart, so I need to unpack you right now. I hope you don't mind. I love the fact that you talked about when you're doing marketing, it's more than just one person. You involve a whole team. And I've found sometimes when I've marketed and I've put it out there, if I kept using the same people, they started to think that that person was it, instead of looking at the variety of team members that you've got. So you were able to showcase all these different skills that these staff members had. Love that. You had me there. Hook, line, and sinker. But also, I loved hearing about how people would come into your office and then you'd be able to, market what and see that. Because you said also, sorry, I can't, yeah, you're touching my heartstrings. One of the best things, and I agree with you, I can do all the beautiful things online, but I can't market a bad support worker. Because small towns talk, like they really do. Like,
They do.
and if you're
They do.
out and about and they're wearing, like, if they're wearing a logo or not wearing a logo, it doesn't matter. They are your marketing tool, because the person that
They
we
are.
serve, they talk about it. My support worker does X, Y, and Z, or they don't. You go down to the local shopping centre and you've got your support worker assisting somebody to get their groceries. People talk. Our people that we serve, they're like mini celebrities. So we're going to do right by them regardless, because they are like the pinnacle of community in that sense.
Yes, that's right. And I think even something as simple as driving around our vans, for example, being safe on the road, being courteous on the road, these things make a difference and they will make an impact in the community. People are more aware these days, even more so with what's out there in the media. People are aware and they're opening their eyes and they're seeing and they're starting to actually speak up, which is a good thing. I love that, because it's holding people to account and saying that, hey, are you doing the right thing here? Should you be doing that? And calling them to account. And I think that really the first thing you need to start with, especially when you're building up a brand, is making sure that firstly you have the right staff, and that all of your staff are across what your expectations are, and really setting that standard and setting that bar.
So you do get up to a bit of mischief. And we haven't really spoken about this, Michelle. I'm so sorry. You're at Arise. What do you do at Arise exactly? Are you the head of marketing, or can you unpack it a little bit? I'm so sorry.
Yeah. Yeah, no. I'm the head of growth and marketing. And really, I think this role has challenged me more than any other role, because I had to start again. Like I said before, I've always been the face behind the scenes. Nobody would know who had created the, Ford brand, or there's a fair few brands out there that I've actually created the branding for, and people would never have known that, because I was behind the scenes and I was comfortable with that. I still got, my enjoyment through working with, like being there with the participants and, having fun with staff and doing fun things. But I was always behind the camera, or always the one taking photos, or always the one creating campaigns, never at the center of anything. This role, the growth role, is probably a majority of what I'm doing at Arise now. So the marketing component is very small compared to the growth component. And all of a sudden, as I said, I had to find who I was, create a personal brand, and then get out and about and get to know parts of the industry that I really, yes, I knew them, but not as much, the onboarding processes, all these sorts of things that you didn't really have to know in the marketing team, but in the growth team, those things are really important. So learning, it's actually expanded my knowledge of the industry a lot more as well, which is great. I think understanding the industry you're in from the ground roots up is really important. And yes, I had knowledge and I'd been in the industry for a long time, but there were still elements of the industry that I really didn't have a lot or wasn't involved in a lot or have a lot of knowledge of. So this role, the growth component, is a really huge component and has really pushed me outside of my comfort zone. And I think I'm really grateful because my directors were the ones that said, when I first came on, they said, we can see this in you. We can see you're perfect for this. I just couldn't see it in myself. So they believed in me before I believed in myself. So I owe them so much because they've actually given me personal growth. They've given me opportunities to meet some of the most fantastic people I've ever met in the industry. I've built friendships and, within this industry that I will have for life. I call it a village of support. And the more people in that village, everybody's welcome. For me, it's you include everyone. So the bigger the village, the better. So if you see us out and about, please come and say hello because we love to grow our village. And we've got amazing people in this industry that we align with ourselves with because we know we're values aligned. And I'm supported to do that. So it's great.
So you said something that I love. I love hearing about growing the village. Can you give anyone listening to this podcast today any trends or anything that would help them grow their village like you have?
Yeah, I think, and I can tell you, don't ever doubt yourself. If I can do it, anybody can do it. I'm 51 years old. I'm 52 this year. And I thought, oh, this is beyond me. I can't do this. You definitely can. So find out what drives you, what's your passion, really reflect on who you are it's in the growth role in particular. We're not so much talking about the marketing here. Find out who you are, what drives you, and lean into that, embrace that. And that is who you are as a brand because you can't say, don't try and be somebody else. Be you because that's all you can really be. If you try to be something that you're not, it's not going to work for you. And when I finally realized that and lent into that, I've been supported, I have to say, I've been supported by some amazing people and they've helped build my confidence. They've helped empower me and they've supported me and surrounded me. It hasn't always been smooth sailing because when you're starting something from new, your confidence, like give me a classroom, walk in confident. Give me marketing, walking confident, no problem. But the growth side, my confidence wasn't at the same level as it was. So my advice to people that are taking on roles like growth or marketing is lean into who you are, be yourself, be authentic, and always be willing to learn and grow and take advice from others. If I hadn't have done that, I wouldn't be where I am today.
Do you get the opportunity to mentor other people in your team? Because you seem quite inspiring that, you're able to get to this point here and to say, I didn't think that you were 52 spring chicken.
I do. I take on work placement students quite a lot because I know how difficult it was for my students to get work placement. So I currently have a work placement student with me, and before that, I had another work placement student. So I love mentoring. I love teaching. That's something that will be ingrained in me for the rest of my life. So if I can help somebody, and I get a lot of messages through LinkedIn saying, hi, Michelle, I've been told you're somebody to connect with to get some advice on marketing and growth. Will you help me? I go, sure, no worries. I've actually got 3 meetings coming up with those requests about, can you give me some guidance? Can you give me some help? Give back. Always give back. I think in growth, what you can do, and even in the marketing space, if you can actually offer to help other people, that will come full circle without expectation either. I don't go into something and go, okay, I'm going to help you with marketing, but I expect this in return. There's no expectation. Please give back because we all have come from, growth where we we're starting somewhere, we're new, we're fresh, and we're learning. And having someone there to guide you and be your mentor and be there to support you is really important. So I will always give back and I will always help other people. And that's just who I am and what I love to do.
I love that because it really doesn't cost that much.
No,
Even if you're thinking no return, there's always I'm huge on karma, so what you give is what you get, right?
yes,
I don't
yep, yes.
don't know why, but I've always been that way, that if I give, that's okay, and if I don't get back, that's okay, but I do believe that, by doing more good, you get good.
Yeah, I do. I agree. And I really think it's really important for us because, like you said at the beginning, marketing and this industry in itself is constantly changing. So I'm self-taught on a lot of things. So when I graduated, we didn't have things like Adobe. We definitely didn't have AI. And so I had to self-teach myself some of these programs because we'd done them in analog, not digital. Everything became digital. So all of a sudden I was in the digital world from an analog girl. So I had to go through and teach myself all of these programs. And then I eventually did some, training and learning on them. But always learn. I will be a learner for the rest of my life. Education is really important. Even free courses, learning off mentors, taking other people's advice. Never think that you know everything or that you can't learn anymore because learning is really, really important because everything's always changing, especially this space.
I think you're my future. There's so many things that you've said that, really do struck my heart chords because I'm forever learning. And for me in particular, so a little background, I'm a mum of three. And to be able to go to uni or tape, I didn't get those opportunities because it's really hard, right? But wherever you can, like there's always YouTube. You could always ask. Like it doesn't hurt, like you said before, it doesn't hurt to slide into a DM and ask a question. Like it's probably served me more better. I've had more successful outcomes by asking than not asking at all.
Yeah, absolutely. And I say there's no stupid question. I'm sorry, but there's no stupid question because when you're learning, if just ask. Don't be afraid to ask. That's what I say to anyone that I work with or I manage. I say, please don't sit on it. Because I know as a perfectionist, I used to do that a lot. I used to be afraid to submit something because I'd be like, is it perfect? Is it, I need it to be perfect. I'm not sure. Don't, nothing has to be perfect. And always go and ask for a second opinion. Even if, you get a work colleague to read over something or, I'll often, read other people's resumes because I do a lot of resumes for people and they'll say, can you read my resume? I can help them with the graphic design. I never charge for those things. It's like, yeah, sure. Send it through. Have a look. Always ask for help because there are people that are willing to help. And yeah, I think you might learn something. I like to learn something new every day.
So, is that the best way forward to follow a career path like yours to get into marketing and growth? Just to learn on your hands, or should I go to uni and learn further?
There's both. There's both options. I've seen, so obviously for me as a teacher, a lot of teachers really wholly and solely believe that education's the only way. There are different types of education. I think I learnt more so for me, uni is academic. Okay. So it's about learning the theory behind things. It's not actually really putting the theory into practice. You actually get to learn more when you're on the job because you're actually putting that theory into practice. So if you like academics, yes, go to uni for sure. For me, TAFE was a great option for my students that were coming through and doing these, diplomas. They were actually getting straight into second year uni, some of them. So it was saving them money, it was saving them time. And then some of them just went straight from TAFE straight into the workforce. And I've had a lot of successful students. And I'll never forget when I was in my final year of uni, I had a very famous radio host come out and do a presentation to our university, and we're all in our third year ready to go out and find the world, and he goes, 90% of you in this room won't end up in this industry, and that's just a fact. And my expectations were like dropped. The room, you could see the energy in the room just dropped, and I just got really cranky. And I thought, it's not what you should come in. Yep, maybe it is a correct statistic, but it's people like that that could change that statistic. So I put my hand up and I said, well, someone like you could change that, because where did you come from? Where did you start? Did somebody give you a leg up in the industry to get in? And he said, oh, yes, I had a mentor. And I said, well, then you could be that mentor for somebody else and open the door for somebody else. And rather than coming in here and making us all feel like we've got no opportunity, you could actually lift us up and say, someone like me could be your mentor and help get you in a pathway into this industry. So always be that person that gives people direction, guidance, and never forget where you come from, because that's the important thing. Open doors. Don't be a door closer. Open doors for people.
So people listening to this podcast, how can they connect with you? Because I feel like you're like the ultimate hype girl here. You're giving some really great advice for anybody that's entering, or, like career shifts, because there are people that enter our sector. Like I'll give you an example. One of my best hires I've ever had was a male diesel mechanic, and you'd never pick it, right? But he had a complete career shift. Anybody listening to this podcast, how do they connect with you to get this type of hype energy that you give?
Look, I will always answer messages on LinkedIn. That's where I spend a lot of time, because we connect a lot through LinkedIn. So you can reach out to me anytime at LinkedIn. Come and visit our day program at Bass Hill. You will see something that will, inspire you. When you walk through those doors, you'll be inspired. You'll see not only obviously the services in process, but you'll see a team of people together that are working together, that are creating what I'm marketing. So they've created that. They've given me the content, because they're so amazing that it's not even hard work. So, we've got an amazing social media manager. He's great. It's come in, visit me, contact me on LinkedIn. I'm happy to chat or give advice or just be there for you to vent.
Where is that? Is that in Sydney? Sorry, I'm not great
It
with.
is in Sydney. Yeah, it is in Sydney. So it's in Southwest Sydney. So that's where our day program's based. We service all of Sydney, Wollongong, Canberra, hopefully soon in the Melbourne space. Yes, I'd be really excited to take what we have, because I think we do have something a little bit unique. So yeah, we're in the Sydney space at the moment. If you want to come and visit, it is at Bass Hill. But if you just want to reach out to me on LinkedIn and have a chat, I'm always there. I'll always respond. Yeah. Work is my life.
When I'm next in Sydney, I think I need to come have a visit. I
Yes,
love a good day
yes,
placement. I
please.
love day placements. I'm
Oh,
sorry. I have a
yeah,
background in day placement, so I'll day placement any day of the week.
yeah. No, please come, and I can see we would get along so well, and yeah, I could introduce you to a great team, a really fun and vibrant young team who are in the industry for the right reasons. What Sam and Summer have created with Arise is something very unique. It's something very special. And I actually nearly left the industry. And if I hadn't have found them, I was a little bit disillusioned. If I hadn't have found them, I wouldn't still be here. And thankfully I am.
Thank you so much for doing this podcast tonight.
That's
We are
okay.
we are definitely catching up in the future.
Good. Thank you for having me. It's been a great chat. And yeah, reach out on LinkedIn, everybody.
I'll put everything in the show notes for everyone. See ya.